In this video, I'm going to go over the PlayMaker sample project. This sample project can be downloaded from the Behavior Designer Samples webpage. First thing that I'm going to do is hit play so you can kind of see what's happening. And I am controlling the unit on the bottom, and the turret is going to be firing rockets and grenades at me. My health and the turret's health are on the top left, and when one of us dies, the game will restart. The turret just keeps rotating until it sees me. I can fire back at it. And I can also hide from it, and then it won't be able to see me anymore. This entire scene was created just with Behavior Designer and PlayMaker. I had to create, I think, 2 different PlayMaker actions, but that was it. And they were also very small actions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the behavior tree. As you can see, it's a whole lot of different PlayMaker conditions and actions. The very first thing that gets run is checks to see if the player is within sight. If the player is not within sight, then this rotate task will be called. And the rotate will just rotate the player a certain number of degrees, or rotate the turret a certain number of degrees. So within PlayMaker, let's open up is within sight, and we can see that we have our event that we need to be called from Behavior Designer, the start FSM, and then once the FSM is started, we check to see if the player is within sight by firing a raycast, and then we compare the object hit with ourselves to see if the object that was hit is the player. If it is, then we compute a dot product to make sure the player is in front of the turret, and if the player is in front of the turret, then we are within sight. If the player is not in front of the turret, we are not within sight, and we return failure. If we are within sight, we return success. So that will return success or failure from here, and then this rotate will always return success. And the rotate doesn't have much to it. It will basically just keep rotating 2 degrees around the y-axis. The next part that is run, so now that we've determined we are within sight, this set of tasks will run. The first thing we're going to do is determine if the player is alive. We're also going to determine if the player is within sight again. We're going to do this because you notice that we have an until fail, and these 3 tasks or these 3 actions could be run multiple times. So even though we got here, it's not guaranteed that we're always going to have the player within sight. Once we determine that the player is alive and within sight, we're going to fire a rocket at the player. The is player alive FSM is very simple in that it's just checking a variable. If the variable is less than or equal to 0, the player is dead, so we're going to return failure. If the variable is greater than 0, the player is alive, and so we're going to return success. The next task is a fire a rocket, and that is always going to return success, and it's just going to instantiate a rocket. We also wait 1 second just so that we don't just keep firing rockets. We could have also done the same thing within the behavior tree, but just one more way of how to do something. So now once the player is either dead or not within sight, we are going to move on to this last branch of code. And the first thing it's going to do is check to see if the player is alive and the player is not within sight, since we have this inverter. If the player is alive and not within sight, it's going to randomly either wait and see if the player eventually is within sight, or just throw a grenade and hope for the best. The only FSM we have not looked at yet is the throw grenade, and that's very similar to the rocket one. And the only difference is we're creating a grenade versus a rocket. So that's all there is to it. Let me go ahead and play for another few seconds just so you can see the tree updating. And I can shoot it, and now you see the different tasks that are being activated. So this entire scene was created just with PlayMaker and Behavior Designer.